Yeah, I don't want to speak today with any spiritual authority. I don't want to speak as a representative of any spiritual or religious tradition. I don't think I really am those things. But as Sue said, I started a sincere Dharma practice in the late 90s, and have been making my best effort to practice the teachings of the Buddha, the Dharma, most of my adult life. I want to speak from that place to how I see us meeting the world in these times. And so I think I should offer a little disclaimer. I heard somebody offer a disclaimer the other day before their talk in this Dharmapala marquee, and I thought, I should probably do that. One of the people who I saw here earlier spoke to me and said, "Is it going to be depressing?" Because I'm feeling like I just want to have a bit of a hedonistic festival. And I really respect that, right? Sometimes we do not want to turn towards what's hard to bear, what's difficult. And I kind of stuck in the title words like extinction and fascism. And these things are hard to bear. And my answer to this person was no. My talk's intended to be completely liberative, right? It's about complete freedom. So I hope it's not depressive, but if you're feeling like it's not the day to be turning towards the hard to bear, there'll be themes around death, for example, right? So if extinction and death seem like too much to bear today, I really welcome you to just kind of be free to go and practice somewhere else. And I'm also very grateful so many people have come to something with these topics in the title, because, this is a festival, right? Who wants to be turning towards extinction and fascism and I don't know if you saw my next talk, but that's got joy in the title, so it's a bit more uplifting. It's after the break. So almost nobody's left, so I'll carry on. Go ahead.
I'm really sorry, I'm actually in the wrong place, I'm going to be honest, so I'm going to leave. I hope that's okay.
So this is a good get out. Oh, I meant to go to this other talk. Right? Thank you. If you're in the wrong place, it's time to go to the right place. Thank you so much for just being brave. So I'm going to read you some lyrics. So this is a song. It was written by the Canadian songwriter called Bruce Cockburn. And the version I like, if you'd ever like to look it up, is covered by Frazee Ford, who was previously in the Be Good Tonguers. And it's just so haunting and lovely. And the first verse is like this, and I'm not going to sing it. Don't the hours grow shorter as the days go by? You never get to stop and open your eyes. One day, you're waiting for the sky to fall. The next, you're dazzled by the beauty of it all. When you're lovers in a dangerous time. Lovers in a dangerous time. These fragile bodies of touch and taste. This vibrant skin. This hair like lace. Spirits open to the thrust of grace. Never a breath you can afford to waste. When you're lovers in a dangerous time. Thank you, Bruce Cockburn. So if you've come to this talk, I'm guessing you probably relate to the idea we're living in a dangerous time. And I know that there's a diversity of people and views at a festival like this. So I'm not going to assume that we all have the same views about what kind of a dangerous time we're living in. But even if you doubt that humans are a cause of global warming and climate change, I'd be surprised if you doubt the mass extinctions that are going on right now of species on our planet. And as humans, we have only really just felt the start of some of the pain of that. Other species have been suffering at the hands of humans for a long time. Estimates range between 1,000 and 10,000 times the rate of natural extinction is going on right now. We're in a mass extinction event, and this is like quite awesome. Turning towards this as a process for me has been a grieving process, an acceptance process. And even if you're more anthrocentric, you're more concerned about humans than other animals, if you're at all interested in Dharma, you probably recognise the interdependence that we have with all these other species, and that it's only a matter of time before we feel more of the pain of these times in these extinctions. 60% of insects in this country alone have been lost in some areas in the last 20 years, and these are the insects that pollinate our crops, that feed us. So sorry to raise these difficult topics. It's hard for me to think about, and just so you are okay with this, I hope. I'm pretty emotionally available when it comes to these contemplations, and I'm probably going to weep. It's okay for you to do. And in dangerous times, it seems like it's a human characteristic, when we're afraid, to hand our power over to powerful individuals. There seems to be a swing to authoritarian regimes when people feel under threat. And you may have heard people calling people fascists, or saying there's a rise in fascism. Fascism, technically speaking, strictly speaking, is probably best reserved for a phenomenon in the middle of the 20th century that was mostly kind of put to bed after the Second World War, but not entirely. But what gives rise to people saying there's a rise in fascism? There's something there that is meaningful to people when they say that. What are people talking about? What are people pointing to when they say there's a rise in fascism? Please tell me. Shout it out. What do you hear?
Cracking down on protesters.
Cracking down on protesters. More laws that make more kinds of protests illegal.
Dehumanising other.
Dehumanising.
Dehumanising and demonising.
Demonising and dehumanising others, migrants, that kind of thing. Sorry? Demonising vulnerable people,
Centralising power illegally.
Centralising power illegally, Ultranationalism. Yeah. So like some of these far-right parties getting elected in numbers that we wouldn't have thought, even dreamed of 10 years ago maybe.
Increasing power of corporations.
Increasing power of corporations.
Externalising our trauma.
Right.
Projecting onto others.
So objecting our trauma onto others might be a cause of this. Increasing inequality, the gap between rich and poor, the billionaires, just going off the scale in terms of their wealth while other people are in poverty. So there's lots of reasons why people are saying there's a rise in fascism. Whether they technically mean, fascism as a kind of, technical term or not, it doesn't matter so much. We are seeing this giving authority away to those who already got lots of authority and power. And that is a frightening phenomenon for many of us. Can you still hear me? Because the rain's quite loud at the back. Can you hear me? We're going to move on from this rather depressing bit in a minute. Okay. The rain is coming down, so you can't leave now. The sky is weeping. Yeah. So I have a Dharma friend who was, in the last few weeks, given an 8-year prison sentence for a 3-line post on Facebook saying that Putin had sent missiles into Ukraine and people had died and there was a lack of power and water in Ukraine. That was all he said, in English. And he posted it from a Moscow address, and he's now spending 8 years in a Russian prison. How much freedom do we have here, relatively speaking? But we are losing some of our rights here, aren't we, There's a genocide going on right now in Gaza. 50, 60,000 people have been killed wholesale. And I'm not saying there haven't been casualties on the Israeli side, but relatively speaking, it's a one-sided genocide. We are seeing horrors going on in our times. And it's not new in a way. Genghis Khan killed about a third of the known world when he was rampaging across Asia. This isn't unique. Maybe climate change seems relatively unique, the rate of climate change going on. So there are some things that are particularly unique about our times, but horrors have been going on a long time. And this was true in the time of the Buddha. The Buddha was teaching at a time of great social upheaval. It moved from a rural to an urban economy. Kingdoms and republics were vying for power. It was a very scary time then. Maybe even a scarier time now, I don't know. Maybe we'll get to hear more about some of the horrors because we're so tuned into the media. So we have our unique horrors, but there's always been, with the human species, a lot of kind of horror. And so the Buddha was teaching in a time where there are some relatable experiences. And I'd like to draw today on some of what the Buddha offered in meeting what was presented to them 2,500 years ago in India. You may have heard the term that Thich Nhat Hanh coined, no mud, no lotus. So this metaphor of that this beautiful white, pristine flower, the lotus, only grows in the murky, muddy water. And without muddy water, you don't get lotuses. This is a metaphor for how something beautiful is grown in that mud. Or is there's a potential for something beautiful to be grown in that mud. And the beauty of freedom isn't actually possible without the fertilizer, without the compost, without the turning towards the difficult. This is part of the Dharma journey. And I propose that it's turning towards the pain, the difficult, the hard to bear, that gives rise to compassion and to wisdom. So compassion is an active response to suffering. It's a wanting to alleviate suffering, a wanting to help. And so without suffering, there's not really any compassion because there's no need for it. And the kind of wisdom, when we talk about Buddhist wisdom, the kind of wisdom we're talking about is the kind of wisdom that frees beings from suffering. This is what the Buddha was mostly concerned about. Many times the Buddha was asked, about his teachings, about various kind of esoteric and arbitrary things, and he'd often turn around and say, look, I teach just two things. I teach suffering and the end of suffering. That's what I'm concerned with. So when we talk about Buddhist wisdom, this is the kind of wisdom we're interested in, suffering and the end of suffering. So I'd like to tell you a story from the time of the Buddha. This was one of the Buddhist suttas, the early Pali Buddhist texts, which was recorded a couple of hundred years after the Buddha's time. So you may know that the Buddhist tradition was an oral tradition, a pre-literate society largely. So it was an oral tradition, and people passed on these stories of what the Buddha said for a couple of hundred years before people wrote it down. And when people started writing these things down, they tended to get fixed. There might have been a little bit of change in the meantime, but this is one of those earliest texts that ever got written down, and it's a story of a conversation between the Buddha and a king at that time, one of these authoritarian figures who goes to see the Buddha. And his name was King Pasenadi Kosala. And this is a story that happened in a place called Savatthi. So it's a little long, so make yourself comfortable. I'm going to read you a Buddhist sutta, one of these earliest Buddhist texts. And they have a sort of framework to them which is probably based around the oral traditions. There's a bit of repetition. But so just treat it as a meditation if it gets, too much. Just listen to the vibrations. So, King Pasenadi Kosala approached the Blessed One in the middle of the day, and on arrival, having bowed and sat down to one side, as he was sitting there, the Blessed One said to him, "Well now, great king, where are you coming from in the middle of the day?" "Just now, Lord, I was engaged in the sort of royal affairs typical of a head-anointed noble warrior king, intoxicated by the intoxication of sovereignty, obsessed by greed for sensual pleasures, and having attained stable control of their country, and who rule, having conquered a great sphere of territory on earth." So he said, like, I'm a king, I do what kings do, I enjoy the fruit of my ruling, and I've kind of conquered this great land, and I'm just living it up. And the Buddha turns to him and says, "What do you think, great king? Suppose a man, trustworthy and reliable, were to come to you from the east, on arrival, say, 'If it please your majesty, you should know that I come from the east. There I saw a great mountain, as high as the clouds, coming this way, crushing all living things in its path. Do whatever you think should be done.' Then a second man were to come from the west, and a third man from the north, and a fourth from the east, each one saying, 'A great mountain as high as the clouds is coming this way, crushing everything in its path. Do whatever you think should be done. If, great king, such a peril was to arise, such a terrible destruction of human life, the human state being so precious, what should be done?' King Pasenadi Kasala replied, 'If, Lord, such a great peril should arise, such a terrible destruction of human life, the human state being so precious, what else should be done but dharma conduct, right conduct, skillful deeds, meritorious deeds?' The Buddha responds, 'I inform you, great king, I announce to you, great king, that aging and death are rolling in on you. When aging and death are rolling in on you, great king, what should be done?' 'Well, as aging and death are rolling in on me, lords, what else should be done but dharma conduct, right conduct, skillful deeds, meritorious deeds?' And the king then highlights his understanding to the Buddha. He says, 'There are, Lord, elephant battles fought by head-anointed warrior kings, intoxicated by the intoxication of sovereignty, obsessed by greed for sensual pleasures, who have attained stable control of their country, and who rule, having conquered a great sphere on earth. But there is no use for those elephant battles, no escape for them. When aging and death are rolling in, there are cavalry battles, chariot battles, infantry battles, but there's no use for those infantry battles, no scope for them when aging and death are rolling in. In this royal court, there are counsellors who, when the enemy comes, are capable of dividing them by wits, or they're capable of buying off enemies when they come. But there's no use for these battles of wealth and wits, no scope for them. What else should be done but dharma conduct, right conduct? So it is, great king, so it is. Aging and death are rolling in on you. What else should be done?' And the Buddha then gives a little verse. 'Like massive boulders, mountains pressing against the sky, moving from all sides, crushing the four directions, so aging and death come rolling over all living beings, noble warriors, brahmas, merchants, workers, outcasts and scavengers. They spare nothing, they trample everything. Here elephant troops hold no ground, nor can chariots, nor infantry, nor battles of wits, nor wealth win out. So a wise person, seeing their own good, steadfast, secures confidence in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. One who practices the Dharma in thought and word receives praise in this world and enjoys later the Pure Land.' So we've got an extinction event, right? In the time of the Buddha, he's saying, like, there's this extinction event coming, and it's going to wipe everything from the face of the earth. And then, and he's using it as a metaphor to remind the king of his own mortality. But I really related this story also to the extinction event that's happening right now. How do we come to terms with that? There's a number of books I've read, and titles of books that I've seen, which I feel like that title is enough. You don't need the book. And one of them is, I think it's Eckhart Tolle's second book, Even the Sun Will Die. It's like, yeah, whoa, even the sun will die. Okay. There's no saving the world. Now, of course, I'm a sensitive, compassionate human. I try to be a compassionate human being. I don't want beings to suffer, and even the sun will die. There's no holding on to this world, to my life, to anything. Any grasping at saving my life, saving the world, is just grasping. It doesn't mean that I don't care, and it doesn't mean I don't want to make a great effort to alleviate suffering, but it ain't something to get attached to, because it isn't going to happen that I can save my life or anybody else's life, ultimately. Sorry, it was a bit depressing. Hopefully this turns at some point. That song that I was going to play at the beginning, don't the hours grow shorter as the days go by? Any of you this side of 40 are probably noticing that? Or even younger people, you might notice when you were at school, like an hour went on forever. Like you're looking at the clock and it's like, it's another 10 minutes to lunchtime, that's forever. And like now, it's like the whole days go by and it's like, things are getting faster as we get older. Right? You might notice that. Things are really rapidly moving. How do we, like, in my 50s and like, even if I imagine I'm going to live another 40 or 50 years, optimistically, that's going to pass very quickly compared to the previous 50 years or so. It's like, it's coming, the mountains are rolling in, here it comes. The second line in the song, never get to stop and open your eyes. So this is kind of what the Dharma's offering, isn't it? An invitation. Can we stop and open our eyes? Can we see this situation as it is? And not fight it? Can we be awake in this moment of life? In this moment of life. Without grasping at saving our lives, without grasping at saving the world, can we be present in this moment of life? Can we stop and open our eyes? The Buddha recommended a mindfulness practice called the mindfulness of death. It's in Pali Maranasati meditation. Is that pronounced right? Maranasati. So in the time of the Buddha, there were charnel grounds where dead bodies were left to rot, and the monks were invited to go to these charnel grounds and meditate on a decomposing corpse, and contemplate my body will be like this. Right? The Buddha really wanted people to turn towards mortality, not to be morbid, but to really value this life, this moment, to not hold on to this body, right? To not hold on to the beauty of this body. So much pressure in our society to be young and to be beautiful, but to turn towards old age, death, to open to the reality of our aging bodies, our mortality. And if I haven't completely put you off, I'm doing another talk after this one, with a break in between, where I'll tell you a bit about my journey towards this. I'm not going to go into it now. But in this life, we don't need charnel grounds to turn towards our mortality. We only need this body, this mind, this heart, this breath, this moment, to turn towards the immediacy, ever-changing nature of our life, and let go of grasping at some future life that we want to hold on to, or fearing some future death that we want to avoid. We can practice a kind of mindfulness of death in this moment by tuning into this moment. There's a practice of just being attentive to this one breath, like it's our last breath. Because it is our last breath in a sense. There'll be no other breath like this breath that you're breathing right now. Each sensation, each moment is completely and utterly unique, and in the next breath you're a new person having a new breath. We imagine that we were born 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years ago, and that in 5, 10, 15, 50 years' time we'll die. We imagine there's a story of a person who's born and dies. But really each moment we're new. Each moment conditions create a new person that's here, which has a story that there's a person that's born and dies on some linear timeline. But what of you, who is a newborn baby, is here right now? What of your experience in this moment is the same as the experience of a newborn baby? I mean, you can't really say there's anything. But we say, I was born in 1972, whatever year it was. We say that, and I hope to live till I'm in my 90s. We think the person who's in their 90s is going to be us. But it'll be a bit like the relationship between us now and us as a newborn baby. It'll be a different person. But because of some illusion of the human mind and heart, we think moment to moment it's the same me. Right? We think that there's a continuum of a me that's born and dies, and it's neatly caps at the beginning of end of life. And I think the Buddha's teaching us to wake up to this illusion, wake up to this magic show that makes it appear that there's a human being that's continuous, that's born and dies. And I think the Buddha asked us to turn towards this uncomfortable story of birth and death to help us to be free from the story of birth and death and live awake in this moment, in this breath, moment by moment, alive and free from all our stories of holding on to this life. And there's a complete freedom in letting go of my life and allowing us to live the life that we're given in each moment, which includes all beings in the entire universe. We can live that in each moment through this training program the Buddha offered, which includes just this breath. And when I forget, it's like one day I'm waiting for the sky to fall. Here it's coming down. Fascism, extinction, it's all coming, and it feels really heavy, and I'm going to die, and all those I love are going to go. One day it feels like it's like just awful, and the next I'm dazzled by the beauty of it all. It's like there's just this, right? There's just this. There's rain, and there's human beings, and there's all of this right now. It's just dazzling beauty. And we can flick. And some of us, and I have at times, got really stuck in the sky is falling. When I first got involved in the Extinction Rebellion movement, it was like, whoa, I really took it on. And I had to come back to just this breath. Beautiful people who are here with me, making a difference, this moment. Bhikkhu Analayo, this Buddhist monk, calls death the cutting edge of impermanence, this turning towards impermanence. And the contemplation of death is really the cutting edge of this contemplation. And the Buddhist meditations that were offered lead to what's sometimes called nirvana. This is sometimes called the goal of the path, nirvana. Interestingly, nirvana sort of somewhat literally translates as extinction. What's being extinct? The grasping, right? Greed, the hatred, the delusion, the idea of a person that's born and dies. Right? That's what's extinct in the Buddhist path. This grasping of a being that's afraid. The thinking that you are going to die. They're thinking that you were born. That way of thinking is what's extinct in Nirvana, I would say. And there's an epithet for that called the deathless. Talk about it in my talk in a couple of hours' time if you want to join me after the break. So we need to open to the suffering, to open our heart to all things. One of my teachers said, when you turn away from suffering, when you turn away from the difficult, when you turn away from the hard to bear, we also turn away from freedom. Because whatever is here, if the hard to bear is here, if the suffering is here, if the anxiety is here, if the depression's here, right now, that is the life that's here right now. And in turning away from that, we're turning away from life. And life is only liberated in opening our hearts and minds to it. As soon as we turn away, there's ignorance, there's ignoring, there's kind of shutting off a part of life. And that is shutting off freedom. Our freedom is in this moment, whether it's joyful or whether it's constricted. If there's constriction, turning towards the constriction is what liberates the constriction. If we notice this part of ourselves we don't like and we turn away from it, it'll keep playing out its routine because it's not being seen. But if we turn towards the part of ourselves that's not being seen, that's painful, that's hard to bear, we see it. We see how it gives rise to suffering. And just like having your hand in a fire, ouch, you pull it out because you notice how it feels. When you see the suffering and what gives rise to the suffering, that seeing is the awareness that pulls the hand out the flame. You don't have to try to give up the causes of suffering, you just have to see them. And we naturally let go when we see how we're grasping and how suffering arises. So the second verse of that song, these fragile bodies of touch and taste, these vulnerable bodies, this vibrant skin, this hair like lace, summarises for me this tenderness, this tenderness of the immediate human body that we are. We are very vulnerable, we are very tender, we're very limited human beings. There's nothing indestructible about us, no matter how you might have felt as a child, especially if you're a white man like me. Entitled to everything, and everything's kind of, you just run around like nothing can hurt you, and end up probably hurting a lot of people as a result. You learn how tender you can be. So these fragile bodies, this vibrant skin, this is our human life. And the invitation in the song is that our spirits open to the thrust of grace. Can we turn towards this vulnerability, this impermanent human life, feel the pain of it? Never a breath you can afford to waste. So can I invite you just for a few minutes to find a posture that will hold you in a short meditation practice, to turn towards this immediate breath, this breath, and notice whatever comes. I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I love this. This is joyful. This is liberating. What's he talking about? Whatever comes, letting it go. Coming back to this one precious breath of this moment, which is the only breath you have in this life. There won't be another like this. So as the bell rings out, you can use the bell if you like to draw your attention in, to turn towards the breath. You can turn from the bell to your own breath, the sensations of breathing, and if it's not comfortable for you, if it's too much, you can turn towards the immediate sensations of your touching the ground and feeling just this sensation in this moment. each breath like it's our last. How would we meet this breath if another one was never going to come? How would we meet this sensation on the body if it was the only time we could feel? Just this breath, just this moment. So there will be a chance for some interaction, questions, comments, reflections. But one of the things I wanted to invite was one of the fruits of this practice of turning towards the difficult, living in the immediacy of this moment, is a freedom, a flexibility from fixedness, from fixed views in particular. I spent a lot of my life, my early part of my life, collecting all the right views. Norman knows I was a vegan, animal rights anarchist, activist, revolutionary, and I had all the right views, and he didn't agree with me. You were wrong. I lived for a while like that, until I found myself getting into fistfights with anti-fascists who also thought they had right views and wanted to be even more right than me. And I thought, there's got to be some other way. Anyway, I went on a Dharma path, which helped me see my self-righteousness, which I was very grateful for, and helped me also to see how, although I still have views, I still have like ideas about the Israeli military causing great harm, and I have views about the Trump administration. I have views about politics in the UK. I have various views. You might guess what they are. However, through practice, I'm very grateful to have some flexibility with those views. I'm open to having my truth changed. I can talk to people who I disagree with without kind of having to convince them that they're wrong and I'm right. I can have jokes about things that I once did were way too serious for me to joke about, because I was right about them. And having the flexibility of the freedom of not attaching to anything when that's the case, whether it's my life, the future of civilization going the way I think it ought to, or certain political viewpoints, is that I can move and flex sometimes when I'm practicing. And there's a book called Seeing That Frees, written by Rob Bebert, some of you might have been aware of. And again, that's one of those great titles, Seeing That Frees. There's a way to see things that's liberatory. There's a way to see things that liberates. You can see what's going on in Israel as a bunch of, and Gaza as a bunch of terrorists who are finally being squashed by a righteous military organisation. You could see generational trauma getting blown through an oppressed minority group and a genocide. You can see an international conspiracy of scientists covering up a hoax about climate change. You could see various conditions giving rise to people having views, and you could see human extinction being caused by humans in an age of stupidity. Various ways you could see things, and you might fall on one side of the camp or the other and have views about stuff. One of the criticisms I hear of the left in politics is that it eats itself. The left, those people who are working for righteousness and justice end up fighting each other. You've got some radical feminists fighting some trans activists, and they're all kind of like wanting to liberate, but they've got different ideas about how they ought to do it. Or you've got the anarchists and the socialists, or all these people kind of wanting good, and then they're so full of self-righteousness that they kind of end up fighting themselves rather than like dealing with some of the big problems. If we could be a little bit more flexible and free with what we thought was right, maybe we could work for justice and kindness in a way that was so much more creative and with so much more solidarity. Maybe we could come together if we're not so attached to our views that we can get behind like this real great injustice which creates so much suffering. There's I can't remember the name of the Zen teacher, but there's a story of a Zen master who's approached by the student, and the student says, what's the teaching of a lifetime of practice? And the teacher says, an appropriate response. He doesn't say, smash capitalism or sit and meditate, or he says an appropriate response, right? What's an appropriate response? It depends on the situation, right? It might be sometimes the appropriate response for me with my children, they're here by the way, they can tell you themselves, is no, you need to brush your teeth. Or we're going here and you need to get ready because we're going. Another appropriate response might be, oh, you don't want to, tell me more, right? Sometimes it's the boundary, sometimes it's the flexibility. We get into a disagreement about it sometimes as to what the appropriate response is. But if I'm curious, what's the appropriate response? I don't decide I'm right and I did the right thing and I know and I'm self-righteous about it. I also don't decide I'm wrong and I'm a bad person because I'm a bad father because I did a terrible thing. But I'm open. Maybe this is right. Maybe this is a good thing to do. Maybe this is wrong. Maybe this is a bad thing to do. Maybe. There's a questioning in the what's an appropriate response which doesn't decide I'm right. Because I don't know really what's right. I have certain movements and wishes and intentions, like I have an intention to work for the benefit of all beings who aren't separate from me. That's an intention I have. I wish for that benefit and welfare of all beings. That's a vow I've made in a Buddhist tradition, to work for the welfare of all beings. I sincerely want to help all beings be free, but I don't know how that happens. But I'm devoted to it. I can be devoted to something that I don't even know what it is or how it happens. And I don't know why, but that's an intention that appears to be here. And I'm endangering my truth to you. I think it's a wedding vow in some marriage traditions. I plight thee my troth. I endanger my truth to you. I'm endangering my truth to you today in service of this vow. I'm sitting on a pedestal, excuse that, doing one of these terrifying things of public speaking because I really want people to see how one of the ways they might be free through being immediately present to their life and letting go of everything, including saving yourself, anybody else, or the world. Because I think when we let go of everything, we're in the best position to save ourselves and the world by not holding on to it. And the Buddha way, I think, is a training program in how to go about doing that. And there is a copious quantity of teaching and practice that you can experience at a place like Buddhafield and various Dharma centres and retreat centres in the world, where you can learn this training program that allows you to enter into this present moment free of all grasping and attachment and aversion, so that you can immediately meet this moment with an appropriate response and be really helpful in a way that isn't right and isn't wrong, but is curious and alive and awake to this moment, this situation as it arises, not having a predefined idea of what should or shouldn't be going on right now. Because what's going on right now is what's going on right now. And fighting it doesn't help. But turning towards it allows it to be taken care of in this creative, liberated way. And I would just like to put a plug for the 13th century Soto Zen philosopher, priest, Eihei Dogen, who is a bit of a mystic and wonderful philosopher whose teaching I quote more than any other is, he said, to study the Buddha way is to study the self. Right? This training program the Buddha offered is studying us as we arise in this moment. We have all sorts of illusions and delusions as to what we are and how life is, and our laboratory for investigation is this self that we think we are. And in studying how that arises moment by moment, by being present to it, we can understand in a sort of way that doesn't really allow us to grasp the understanding who we are, how life is, how life arises, how suffering arises, and be free of all of that, and be greatly helpful through practicing an ethical, present mindfulness on this path of wisdom. So I'm guessing I've been talking for the best part of an hour, is that right? And I think that we try to keep these to an hour and a half so that I get a break before the next one, and maybe you do too if you want to come back or do something else. So I'd like to say thank you for listening and invite you, if you would like, to offer your comment, your reflection, your experience, your wisdom, your questions, and we can make this more of a conversation. And if you've sat long enough, you're also welcome to leave or come, as you wish.